good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are all located. It is good to see so many happy faces today. We're really excited to have you all here today for the third review session for the Themed Attraction Student Showcase. Thanks so much for joining with us today. Today we have with us a series of four prestigious panelists that are going to be giving feedback on each of seven projects that have been reviewed. And then at the end of our time, we are going to have an opportunity for you to hear our award winners for the showcase for this year. And so I first of all want to start by introducing our four panelists. First of all, myself, my name is Chris Rogers. I am a professor and an administrator with Purdue University. We have Rodney Heiligman with Life Formations. We have Dave Cooperstein with PGAV. We have Alicia Hungerford from BRC Imagination Arts. And then we have with us John Polk from Technifex. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day to review these projects. We know it really does help all of our students. And so like I said, as you can see on the slide, this gives the rundown of the projects and the order in which we're going to go. I am going to be strict on my time. We're going to give about 15 minutes to each project. And there is going to be time for you as students to ask some questions of our panelists. And so I'm going to judge that as we go, but I'm going to set the timer and we're going to begin with our first project for the day. So the first project we have with us right now is, I'm going to, hopefully I get this right, Dominivum, a theme park where you can live the greatest stories ever told. And so I'm going to begin our time for today, and I'm also going to showcase a little bit on the screen of that project. And so, panelists, first of all, is there anybody here from that project?
Hello.
Excellent. Hi, Eduardo. All right, we're going to go ahead and we're going to begin. So, panelists, please begin with your review of Dominivum.
Sure, I'll start. So Eduardo, yeah, the core idea of this project is really strong. With the idea of like live the greatest stories ever told, right? I think that is a great idea. I think what it needs is some sort of unique twist or innovation to sort of, justify re-experiencing these familiar stories in a theme park, right? Like, why do I want to come here to see Hamlet? Or is this version of Hamlet different than I would see at a regular theater? Why is your version of British Museum different? Is your, Solomon Mine ride different than the one that Disney has? So I think that's fundamentally something to think about. I think your layout is a good starting point. It's sort of the classic Epcot beat on a string, right? I think there's a lot of issues with scale, and some missing, like buildings don't match the ride scales, the path widths, those sort of things, and those are all things that can get worked out. But I also think there's things that you really need to think about when you're master planning a whole theme park. Things like restrooms and restaurants and retail and support spaces and all those things that make the functionality and the completeness of the park, and start thinking about that from the beginning and not just kind of rides and attractions. I think your point of view visuals that you created are stronger than your plan visual that you presented. And I think you may have been served better by relying more heavily on the POV visuals than on the plan visuals. And I actually think, interestingly enough, some of the prompts that you use to generate the AI images are actually more effective than some of the narrative text and how you're describing the project. So I just found that really interesting. And I'll sort of wrap up and say, like, I strongly recommend you learn and start using some 3D modeling tools. I think there's some easy ones, things like SketchUp and Rhino. I think 3D models can help create polished visuals and better spatial understanding. And the very last thing I'll say is, if you're going to use a video, which I think is a really effective way to convey a concept, I think it needs to be different or tell a deeper story than just the 2D visuals that you're using. Because when the video that you created is essentially just the 2D visuals in a video. And I think you can take advantage of audio and motion and more storytelling. So I'll leave it at that and let my other colleagues comment.
I'll jump on there. A couple things Dave said and kind of flesh this out. A couple notes I had. It would have been really great to understand when we talk about what makes this unique and different from visiting some of the other places that maybe have some of this, to understand their restaurant approach, to understand the shops. Am I going deeper into, I get to ride this ride and now I'm going to taste food that would have been appropriate for this ride. And now I'm going into a shop and maybe I have an arts and crafts interactive where I can make something appropriate to that story, or I have some sort of interactivity appropriate to that story. So it is bringing familiar stories, as Dave mentioned, how am I experiencing these in a different way? I think you could have brought that in with the food, the music, the retail, and interactive experience. And this is how we went deeper into that story, if you liked. And that would be really exciting. It's fun to revisit stories, it's fun to revisit them in a different way. And I definitely do echoing understanding space. Where are you going to put all of these people? What is your throughput? Where are your bottlenecks? On your plan view would have been really helpful to understand the how many people can overall fit here. What are your per cap expectations in terms of experiences in the restaurants, the shops, the interactives, and those things? I think that would help you flesh out why is this a unique revisiting these familiar stories unique. That's what I would offer on this. Good start. Got some more to go.
Okay, thank you.
I might just add one more comment on this one. Eduardo, I thought this idea was really exciting. It can, as everyone has already mentioned, so great job coming up with that. I think just from, building on everyone's comments from a presentation standpoint, in the industry we're in, it's really helpful to understand the guest point of view. And when we look at visuals and renderings, it's really easy to kind of imagine what the scenic could look like. But in order to create something really, that people are willing to put their money into and get into a project, I think it's worth thinking about the guest perspective and finding those little touch points that make it immersive. So not just like an immersive building, but what are the small things that we're getting into or the key stories that make it relatable? I think that's a really helpful tool to think through. Why does the guest care is a question that I think is a helpful one to have in your back pocket as you're designing stuff like this. So great job and, more to come, I'm sure. Just keeping that guest perspective in mind.
Yeah, I concur with everything my colleagues have said. I would like to have seen a little bit more clarity on the correlation from the AI image to its location in the park. Like, how am I really moving through this space? And then I come upon this, and how do I transition from one kind of land or story to the next? But I completely concur that the overall concept is solid and could be an interesting place to visit for sure. Eduardo, good job.
Any other comments or questions, Eduardo?
Okay, so first I would like to thank everybody that reviewed my project, taking away your precious time to view my insignificant project. And on the question of 3D modeling, that's what I'm considering doing next. I really wanted to do like the front entrance, the sort of Main Street area, which has a deep backstory I'm working on, but I didn't have time to do this in this competition. I only had like 1 day to work on this project because I realized the competition was happening in the last few days. So yeah, the criticism I really took heart came from Dave, because everything he criticized about this project were the few things I thought I actually did a good job. It was funny.
boy.
Like I was scared. Do I have too many restaurants and not enough capacity in this park? So I added a carousel in the Arabian area in a space that was a food court. I guess I didn't do a good job explaining where the food locations would be, where the other supporting facilities like first aid, restrooms, and I also didn't draw the ring road in the park for the service area, all the cul-de-sacs for the trucks, deliveries, entrances for backstage, that sort of thing. Yeah, but you can go.
No, I think all of those are things that if you don't start thinking about at the beginning of a project, they're really, really difficult to add on later on. Like it's just very challenging. And understand you don't have time. And first of all, don't ever apologize for a project. You whatever you presented is what you presented, and that's what we're going to review. So there's no need to apologize for anything, whether you didn't have time or any of that stuff. As I don't ever do that. But yeah, I think 3D modeling could be a way to solve a lot of the issues that you just talked about, and also you start to understand the sense of scale and proportion and the width of pathways and the actual sizes of rides and things like that in a really meaningful way as soon as you start putting in 3D. And my suggestion is don't try and solve one part of the thing in 3D in excruciating detail. Look at the thing holistically in 3D to make sure it's all working together, because you can always then go back and start to add more detail and add the parts and pieces in. But you really need to think, when you're master planning a park like this, you've got to think about the whole thing as a living, breathing entity and how it all works together. And then you can come back in and add all the details of how it all functions and moves and works. That's my suggestion.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other comments or questions? All right. Thank you, Eduardo. Thank you for your submission. Hopefully this was helpful for you. It was a good experience for you. And thank you to the panelists for your feedback. We're going to move on to the next one. You all have saved me a little bit of time, which is great. I'll always take it. Our next project is Tallulah Resorts. Do we have anyone here from Tallulah?
Hi, I'm here.
Where are you?
Awesome. Hi.
Oh, wait, where are you? I missed you.
Right here.
Oh, all right. Is that one name Amanda Rose, or is it Amanda Road? Like,
It's just Amanda, but
Oh,
it puts my middle name in there for whatever reason.
Okay. All right.
All right. Thank you, Amanda, for joining us. Panelists, please go ahead and give your review of Tallulah Resorts.
I'll let someone else start. Unless no one else starts. Someone else start, please.
I'll start.
Thank you.
I think we all agreed. We reviewed this a little bit in a previous meeting. We all agreed this one is a really good submission. It was really well fleshed out. The interior designs, the materials, all that stuff that you see in a real kind of a pitch deck or a schematic to DD level design. It's all there. All the pieces are there. I'm not an architect. I'm more of the tech guy. So I was really engaged by the interactivity, the fact that it starts with a backstory that's really strong. You know why you're there, and it encourages you, that backstory really encourages you to dig deeper and explore the resort with the interactives and the different experiences in there. It's really solid piece of work in my humble opinion. The only thing I didn't understand about it was the economics. How much is a room here? Do we have to buy the island, or are we leasing the island from Bali? I'm always digging into those details. But I think it's a really solid concept, and it's a place I'd go.
Yeah, Amanda, can I ask you a question? How long did you spend developing this project?
Basically an entire school year.
Okay. even given that, I still don't entirely understand how you reach this level of effort and skill and polish across a school year. I can't grasp it. I've been doing this a long time, and the amount of work that you put in, the amount of thoughtfulness in the detail, the amount of sort of technical execution of all the parts and pieces, the amount of research that you did, the storytelling, the story writing, the backstory you created. I don't really understand how you did it. It's incredibly impressive. I think as a concept package, it is at the level that I would see from our office, right? I just think there's a professionalism and a level of detail and you know, for everything from the textures and the materials and the storytelling and all that stuff. I just think it's great. There's only a couple places that I sort of had to mark you down, right? And the first one was under originality. Like I think this is a beautiful place. I think it is, you know, exceptional in execution. I just think it feels a little bit similar to some existing places, right? And now that doesn't mean you can't borrow from existing places. It just like it takes influences from Milani and Discovery Cove and Moana at Epcot and maybe even like Rulantica, places like that. I think the execution of that is outstanding, and I think it's okay to borrow ideas and combine them in fresh and meaningful ways. So that was one thing. And then the other thing is, like, again, like we talked about the last project, I do think you need a little bit more attention to all those support spaces, right? The kitchens and the storage and the maintenance and the service areas and all those things that make the place function have to be integrated, especially on like an island like this. Like, where is all that space? They can be really, like I said earlier, they can be really hard to add later. So how do you fit all that stuff in? But look, I think this is a fantastic project. I literally want to book a week-long stay there right now. I think you should be really proud of this. I think a complete vision of kind of a fully realized resort experience. It's incredibly impressive.
Yeah, I would just add just everything they said. This was an incredibly impressive, down to having actually postcard designs as part of the package. Really appreciated the one thing I'll add to that. Really appreciated the blending of beautiful aesthetics and technology, some interactive, some lighting, passive interactives for people who don't like to touch things, and kind of layering that in there so that the space maybe even has things you don't realize the first time you go through. And then the second time you go through, it's a little bit different, or the people you go through each time maybe make it a little different in the way that you interact with the space. Talking about some of the lighting and those effects that you've done. So always creating something that's beautiful, but can be different at each visit or each time you pass through it is a great thing. But overall, echoing, this is an amazing job.
I'm just over here enjoying the video. No, echoing everybody what they've said, you know, the detail was excellent, really tells a story from every touch point. So, great job.
What questions do you have for us, Amanda?
Sure. You actually did touch on some of the questions I was gonna have. So one of the big things that I did feel like I kind of missed on this project was the logistics standpoint, and I think I got very consumed by concept that when it did come to actually thinking logistics, back of house, facilities, and like even just like capacity, how much it costs. I did kind of miss over this on that project, and I think if I had another year to develop, that would have been fully figured out as well. But I'd love to know like any pointers you have when it comes to thinking in terms like that.
Sure. Well, first of all, the reason you got lost in it is because that's the fun stuff, right? The concept, the storytelling, that's all the fun stuff. But like I said, all that other stuff you're talking about is super important. My recommendation is the place to start is by studying other existing parks that have incredible operations. Places beyond just like Disneyland and Universal, which are the obvious ones. Places like Dollywood, even places like Holiday World, like go look at their back of house, go look at how they operate the park, and see the sizes of things and the relationships of where things are. Benchmarking is a really, really valuable skill in this industry, and understanding what the great attractions and the great parks are doing to make them be that great is super important. And so that's a place I would start. And then there's just a lot of research about, sizes of things and capacities and operational models and things like that. And you're right, it's a lot of work, and it's very challenging, but it is what makes really great projects successful, is figuring out that not only how to tell the story, but how to actually make it real with all the stuff that has to support the story.
Hmm. Thank you.
Any other questions, Amanda, or any other comments from our panelists?
It's a good question. Well, thank you, all of you, for reviewing. It means a lot to hear all of your kind words. It is very encouraging. I think you guys have basically covered all of my questions. I think you answered everything that I was already thinking of. So
Hey,
thank you
Christian,
again.
could I say a few words? To
Please do,
Amanda?
Jesse. Yeah, go ahead.
So, Amanda, I wasn't a panelist, but I'm a licensed general contractor. And when I review this, I do a lot of design build work. So I get concept packages and we take them the next step into the engineering phases. As I watched your submission, I immediately knew what kinds of materials and methods I was going to use. I'm going to use glulam beams in the lobby. I'm going to use wood piles on your walkway, stamped concrete on the walkway top. The railings, I'm going to have custom CNC made. Like, these things are popping off in my head as a production guy, and I knew immediately. Now it's $1 billion idea, so it's a massive project,
Yes.
and probably likely to find hard steps to get the money for it. But it was well done, well executed. I could take what you did and I could take it to the field today.
Thank you. That's really good to hear. That was kind of what I was aiming for when it came to being able to convey a concept that could technically go into fabrication of some sorts. When it comes to materials, I really wanted to focus in on interior design because that's one of my interests, as well as concept. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah, very cool. It's well done.
All right, anything else? All right. Well, thank you, Amanda. Thank you for your submission, and thank you for being here today. We're going to go on to our next project. The project is Inner Child, a playground for the soul. Is anybody here from Inner Child?
Yes, I'm here.
Awesome. Adriana is her name?
Yes, Adriana.
Just make sure I say that correctly. So, all right, panelists, please take some time now and review Inner Child.
Sorry, we're just flipping through really quick to get oriented.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, that was me too.
Yeah, go through my notes.
I think, to start, the work here was really, a great idea. I know some people that have tried a type of concept that touches on this kind of emotional level. So I'm really impressed at how you've brought this to life. And I think all of the vignettes you did and stuff were really great parts of illustrating, a transformational journey for a guest. And being able to touch on those emotional, timeless aspects. I think in reviewing, my only, critique was just to think about, what are the things that would make this park a place that you'd return to? Thinking about like investment and, um, just in general selling the project. I think thinking about how people would return, what makes them want to come back, is always a helpful thing. And it's not just repeat visitation, it's not just things changing every time you go back, but really thinking of an emotional hook that would, mean you would return or go with friends or tell someone to go. So, think about those things, but I thought you did a great job. I love the illustrations. The interactives were interesting. You know, the Kuka coaster is great, really expensive, but you know, it's a cool idea. So I think you should keep exploring it. I know my colleagues have a lot more comments on the tech of it, but you know, good job all around.
Yeah, Adriana, I mean, I think the idea of a theme park focused on mental health and sort of reconnecting with your inner child, like it's like really unique, really refreshing, and something that the industry could truly benefit from in like a really meaningful way if someone could actually pull this off. I think your concept art is really creative and supported with a a solid mix of attractions for all your ages. I'm super impressed with the inclusion of the business thinking. I think this is probably part of your program, but thinking about things like competitive landscape and ROI and financial projections, break-even analysis, like there are not a lot of students who are studying this stuff, this sort of real world level strategy, and it's great to see, and I think it's super important. And yeah, I'd say the same thing that I told everyone else, like you know, the how the park operates, the back of house requirements, all that stuff can continue to use more work. I think the buildings are kind of undersized. There's all kinds of details like that. The whole park feels a little bit too small, that sort of thing. And then I think, like Alicia was saying, the time capsule ride is super cool. And at first I was like, there's no way you could pull this off. Like this type of customizable, futuristic, like AI powered, like hyper customizable experience. And then as I was reading your description, your narrative, I thought like, you know what, I don't actually think we're that far away from this happening. So I think it's an awesome idea. But like Alicia said, like your capacity is way too low, like 500 people an hour. You've got to get up to 1,800 people an hour. I think 50 Kuka arms is like crazy expensive, you know, and your whole estimated cost for the entire park at 260 million. I think the Kuka arm attraction itself is probably 400 million plus, you know. So there's just a sort of a reality of buildability and a financial reality here that I think you could dive deeper into. But look, it's a bold, soulful, kind of full of heart project. And I think if you continue to develop it, it could be sort of a new kind of themed destination. I think it's really cool.
I think to your point, Dave, just you know, talking about costs of rides and everything, you know, there's a lot of us in the industry that don't know those answers, and that's totally okay. And I think, you know, a part of the process, and just from an educational standpoint, is, you know, coming up with an idea that does show something is happening in this room and this is how it works, and then leaning into the experts to kind of help you understand what a realistic version of that type of ride system. That's totally, you know, all a part of the process, and makes us all work together really nicely. So, you know, it is a good idea of the room. It can be done many ways. But you know, the Kook arm was fun, but obviously expensive. But you know, it's all gonna be a journey as you do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I appreciate just a couple things to tag on there. Appreciated seeing like the mind map in there, understanding your thinking behind your approach to this, because then when there were little gaps, we understand what you were intending what you were thinking for the overall experiences. Couple comments that are nitpicky, but I think didn't detract too much. But there are very different styles of visuals in here. And it was good to see the evolution of, you know, from quick sketches to some modeling to some AI. And we use AI sometimes. It's tough to make AI models sometimes look like they should be, visuals look good together. But it was a little bit scattered on the style of visuals. It didn't have a cohesive feel that kind of moved me in a certain direction. So it was a little disrupting. I'd love to see kind of the comment I said before. I like the interactive idea because that is what makes it different. I would love to have that teased out a little bit more. How is this different each time? Can I have some sort of identifier that said I was here last time and I want to experience things a little bit different? It can trigger a different experience for me, so I don't get something repetitive that had an alternate interactive experience or alternate ending, that type of thing. But those are just a couple of my little comments. But I would definitely visit this place. I love the intent. I love what it's trying to do.
Yeah, and I would just add I really enjoyed the hands-on work that you did on pulling the ideas together. your passion for the project is very clear. It comes through. And I have the same comments about how much a bunch of Cougar arms cost and the media and all that. But the passion there and the idea are really strong. I think you did a good job.
Adriana, do you have any questions for our panelists?
Well, first, thank you so much. That it all is so helpful. And a couple things like there were little things in the back of my mind that I already knew you guys were going to talk about. And but I thank you for also bringing up a bunch of new stuff that I didn't think about. And I guess my question would be, if you were me in my position and you were somebody that wanted to bring this place to life one day, genuinely like design and open it, what would you do right now?
Wow. I think it's probably, I don't know. I think it's probably, I think you need to continue to sort of define and refine and develop the idea, right? I think you need to do the sort of benchmarking research that I talked about earlier in terms of, like Elisa was saying, reach out to people in the industry who know costs of things and understand what it actually would cost and how you actually pull it off, and find ways to make it scalable so that you could build it maybe a lot smaller than what you've imagined, and eventually grow. But so I think that's the place to start, is to really kind of refine. It's just like writing a good research paper. It's all about editing and editing and editing, right? Or even a good like book, like you write it once and then you just edit it for years. So I think that's the next step that I would take.
Thank you.
You definitely want to, you need to decide what's sacred in this design, right? That's what you want to protect. What is the most sacred pieces of that? And then as somebody who takes the sketches from concept that others provide and take it to reality, you do want to, the reason you want to define what's sacred is you want to get that really protected. Then you want to go and find out those costs and find out that ROI. The business, because you want to make this, you want to go for funding. Understanding the ROI and the potential of how many people do I have to put through? What do I think the cost can be? How long is the experience? Is it a half day experience, a full day experience? That is going to impact how you evolve this design, right? So the reason I want you to take what's sacred and protect it, because the other things that are maybe a little bit less sacred might get value engineered out, right? We hate the word VE'd out, but that's why before you go get pricing, figure out what's sacred. Then go get pricing and really understand the business behind this, accurate business behind it. You don't want to gut your soul of this thing, but you do need to start to go, okay, this is going to push me to one less experience or half the Kuka arms, but that affects my throughput. And all of that's going to start to become that give and take. So you always want to decide what's core, and then be realistic about what people will pay to go in here. Are there opportunities for some sort of co-branding? Are there other things you can bring in that bring money that isn't necessarily always ticketed, but what are your per caps for the restaurants and the what are you hoping you're going to be able to sell out of this? Is there a way to take that part of the experience home? All of that's got to become part of that business model before you go and get too refined.
Yep.
What this could be.
Thank you.
And then you just need to, then if you have all that figured out, then you just go on Shark Tank and you get Mark or Lori to build it, which I'm still shocked that no one has ever gone on Shark Tank with like a theme park that they want to build, which would be incredible. But anyway.
Well, might be me. Oh, thank you guys so much. I actually took the business class before I developed all of the concept stuff, which maybe was a little backwards. It wasn't part of my program. I did it extra. So maybe I'll go back and redo all that business stuff.
There's nothing backwards about that. We often start our projects from a business analysis and strategic planning analysis perspective before we start designing ideas and stories. There's nothing backwards about that. Yeah, you have to update it and revisit it, but
yeah. Okay, thank you guys so much. This was so helpful.
All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Adriana. And Dave, there actually was a contestant last year on Shark Tank. It was a virtual theme park.
Oh,
so you know.
That's all right. Close.
It was Brent Bushnell that did it. So there you go. Just to give everybody a heads up in terms of the upcoming projects, also for our panelists, so you know what's coming, and for students. Plunge into the Trench is next. After that, it will be Until Then, A Journey Through Grief, and then the show, A History of Rock in Concert, and then the last one is Chrono Jam. So just so everyone is aware and prepared. So the next one we have up is Plunge into the Trench. Is there anybody here from Plunge into the Trench? All right. Well, we are recording, so you can go back and review. So, panelists, if you would be able to take some time now and review Plunge into the Trench.
John, I think you should start. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Trying to unmute. I have too many screens and my mouse is running around, and yeah, so this one's a challenge, right? It's very vertical, and so figuring out how you actually build this ride to where you start at the top and you end at the bottom. From my review of it, I couldn't figure out how we get out of this thing. So do we go deep down into a hole, and then there's a story about how we're evacuated from the deep in a vehicle that's actually an elevator, or do we get in a tram that is taking us to the edge of the water and we're actually traveling up a few flights during that journey and you don't know it, and then you travel back down to the ground. But still, story-wise, when you get to the deep and you're done, I just don't get how you get out. I like the effort that was put into thinking of the various animatronics, how they look, the aesthetics of it, and the animatic. There was obviously effort put into the animatic. Then, and I'll let Rodney address this. I don't understand how those sea creatures that are obviously suspended in air are powered or operated or rigged. There's a few technical challenges to it, but the effort is there. The presentation of the ride vehicle and the figures and everything is compelling, but there are some definitely logistics and technical challenges that kind of need to be addressed. The only other thing is, we did an attraction at Tokyo Disney Sea, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and we went to great lengths to convince you that you were underwater. And you kind of have to just suspend that belief in this attraction. You're not really underwater. You're in a facsimile of the underwater, because there's no bubbles or anything that's trying to sell you. There are some atmospherics that were mentioned, but it's really tough convincing people they're underwater when they're not, and it's very expensive. But other than that, the animatic and the effort on the aesthetics was good.
I'd just tag on a couple quick things. Yeah, some of these animatronics I think would work better maybe as projections in some cases, and get that some really big things in there, or lighting effects even, and do that blend, dimensional with projection, or some projection mapping on some forms. I think there's some nice blends you can do to get some of the translucency, get scale, make it feel like they're swimming around you, even with moving projections where the projection screen is translucent and flying away from you. And that may also help with some of the water effects if we have some projection of bubbles on translucent surfaces. I also struggled with the going down. I don't think you need to do that. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea doesn't do that. A lot of the water rides that are underwater don't do that. So I think that's a big cost that doesn't have a big impact to the guest. I'd rather than be focusing on maybe a little movement in the vehicle, which is beautiful. And then just see the mixed effects, bringing some of the other techniques. Obviously, we love animatronics, but this might be better with some blended effects than just the animatronics.
Yeah, I agree with all that. So we talked a lot about technical. So I want to talk a little bit about story. I think the strength of this concept is the idea of like a calm, conflict-free underwater dark ride that you don't use a gun to shoot anything, and like it's just a sort of refreshing kind of approach. Now that being said, I think the lack of narrative conflict or variation, it makes the ride feel less engaging or sort of rewritable. And so the question is like, what's the story you're trying to tell? What are the character overlays like? Because essentially, Finding Nemo at Disney is the same ride, but it's using the story and the character overlays. Now, yes, they have an IP and they build off of that, and it's amazing. But you could create your own IP, and you could overlay that story and really, what's the sort of the reason for going on this journey as a guest. So I think developing a richer story and adding the emotional highs and lows and conflict and resolution, even without the IP, I think is what creates sort of that memorable emotional journey. And some of this is a little unfair because you said in your presentation that you are a 3D visual effects artist. But I think storytelling is essential for understanding as a 3D visual effects artist, because it will make your visuals much richer and much more powerful. And I think as a visual effects artist, you can keep expanding your toolkit beyond story, and keep expanding your toolkit with all of the various 3D tools, 3D Studio Max and Rhino and Unreal and Unity Engine, and all the tools that industry professionals who are doing 3D VFX are using for high impact storytelling and visualization.
And I think a nice overlay on top of the story, as Dave talked about, nice 3X story. There also can be the go out and have your little camera and you're trying to photo capture 28 fish, or so there's an adventure and a gameplay you could put in this if you're having this amazing immersive experience. And you're not going to have going down a waterfall. You're not going to add that level of vehicle path excitement. You can still add a level of excitement and competition of just going to seek and find overlay. It's optional, don't have to do it, but those guests that want to do it a second time or make it repeatable, they could have that type of an overlay experience that engages them in a little bit different way.
Any other comments, panelists? I know we're talking to really no one right now.
Hey, this is brilliant stuff, though. You should get this out.
We're capturing it, Roddy. We're capturing it.
Perfect.
So, all right. Well, thank you, panelists, for reviewing this project. Hopefully, when you go to watch this recording, you find it valuable and useful for you as you continue to take this project forward. So, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next project. Save ourselves some time. We are going to be reviewing Until Then, A Journey Through Grief. Is there anybody here from that project?
Christian, Julia is not able to be here, but Amanda has agreed to take notes for Julia.
Oh, great.
Great. Thank you, Amanda. So I appreciate it. All right. All right, panelists, feel free to go ahead and review Until Then, A Journey Through Grief.
This this was a different type of experience. When I opened it, I had to almost recalibrate, but I think that's great. There was obviously a journey somebody has gone through that I have not yet gone through, and to dive into that thinking was, I had to go through it a couple times. The first time just to understand, because it was so different than what I'm used to reviewing or being part of in the professional world. So I appreciate somebody taking the time to develop Julia taking the time to develop this and put something out there that I had not seen, at least in my experiences with location-based experiences. Really appreciate the aesthetic. Again, nice consistent visuals throughout to establish an overall mood. The mood of the visuals helps just establish the way that we're reviewing the content of the visuals, and so that was really, really great. Some good detail about those individual experiences. Again, a little bit outside of my direct experience, but I could see where this would become an important piece of a healing process. And I could see this used in different forms in different places, almost like and this, I don't mean it this way, but I'll say it almost like a franchise or copies in different types of places where you would have something like this in each town, and then you would have an entire, the community that uses this and supports this. So really appreciate the different type of experience from Julia, from what I've seen.
Yeah, I felt like this was a really good, in general, just presentation structure was awesome. Really well thought out, very kind of 360. I enjoyed the different pieces of art in the right places and how you've described the storytelling. So honestly, really good job on that front. You know, we deliver these types of packages all the time. So really good there. I think one of my notes was just to think about creating some more intimate spaces. And maybe they're already involved, but the visuals are just not showing that. But kind of creating these moments of reflection and intimate spaces before you get into the larger kind of grief with other people moments. And that's really unique. People don't get that type of space or create that type of space for themselves. So this is a really cool, it's a cool idea. I'd be interested to see how far it goes. So great job.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think this is a incredibly original, deeply moving concept that is somehow blending museum and theater and art and therapy, and it does it with sort of grace and beauty and emotional integrity, and offers what could be a healing experience without really being exploitative. Is that a word? Exploitative, I think. Exploitative. I don't know. Anyway, I think it's great. I think it's the narrative super clear. How you're drawing guests from room to room is elegant and impactful. I think the identity of each room is distinct and tied to each of the stages, and there's a sense of cohesion and flow that you don't often find in museum experiences that convey the emotion and the texture and the tone in a really beautiful way. I think you've started to suggest technology in interesting ways, and it's sort of tasteful and restrained, which I think is appropriate. But I do think there's another notch up on the technology in terms of audio and projection and interactivity that could really allow you to personalize this and experience even more than you already have. But I think it's and the last thing is, like, I think the technical drawings are a great start, and there's just one more level of sort of detail and clarity to get this thing ready for fabrication or even for bidding that could elevate it up slightly higher. But I think it's an impressive achievement, even for a seasoned designer, let alone a student. It's a beautiful project.
I agree. Well, actually, this one, in my notes, I said this one hits a little close to home. I lost a child not too long ago, and so while I agree with every comment, the package is so well put together, the aesthetics, the look of the package, and the individual spaces, all of that stuff is 100% correct. My journey was very different, where I didn't even participate with my family in some group thought about how we go through this process. I went off on my own little, journey, which may be dumb. And so originally I thought I wouldn't go to this place because, my journey is my journey. And the more I think about it and the more I look about it, I go, this probably would have been very helpful for me to understand there is a process. And so the thought of tackling such a topic and doing it tastefully is a real achievement, I think.
Thank you for sharing that, John. Any other final comments from our panelists? Or Amanda, I know it's not your project, but if there's any questions that you might have that would be helpful, if not, that's okay too.
I don't have any questions from Julia, but I know she would appreciate all of you guys reviewing everything a lot.
All right. Thanks for taking those notes, Amanda. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next project. The next project is called Welcome to the Show, A History of Rock in Concert. Do we have any students who participated in that project?
Yeah, Kyle's here, I think.
All right, Kyle is here. Okay, awesome.
Yep.
Oh, it's Kyle. I know Kyle. Awesome. All right, we're going to go ahead and begin. So panelists, if you would please review Welcome to the Show, A History of Rock in Concert.
Sure, happy to start this time. And full disclosure, I've I know Kyle, I've talked to Kyle a couple times, but I tried to be as objective as I could. I think I really like this project. I think the storytelling approach is really strong. I think there's something that you've managed to capture about kind of the look and feel of rock culture, like the vibrant entry and sort of the gritty back alley. Like there's just something I can't even really put my finger on it, but there's something about the look and character of this experience that just captures rock and roll. I don't know what it is, but it's there. And so that's an achievement. I think the guest journey, the way you've orchestrated the path is awesome. I think there's a really smart use of the compact footprint. There's really sort of efficient spatial planning and sensory layers of sight and sound and touch and even implied smell, right? That sort of make the experience immersive. So I think all of that is great. I think that as a design intent package, it's great. I think it needs a little bit more development to be kind of fabrication ready, like in terms of wall elevations and exhibit detailing, artifact schedules, all the stuff that I know you know how to do, and maybe you just didn't want to do it for this project or didn't have time or whatever. But I think it's a great start. I think when you start to look at technology, and some of my other colleagues can comment probably better on this, but I think that there's a nice balanced approach between digital and analog. I do think that you could add another level of interactivity to some things. But my biggest thing I want you to take away is in what is like the peak of the experience in the space that you call the show. When you walk into that room, I think it just lacks the emotional impact that part of the experience needs to have, right? When you look at things that Cosm is doing with domes, when you look at stuff that Illuminarium is doing with immersive media, I think that part of the experience doesn't yet match the emotional peak that you wanted to get to. Like when those doors opened in your video, I expected like this kick-ass rock and roll space. And essentially it was 3 screens on a wall with a stage in front of it, right? Like there was nothing like truly mind-blowing about that space, and I think it should be. So it's a great project. It's a really strong foundation, and I think it could be a really cool experience as a museum exhibit.
Yeah, I think it was great. The aesthetic, obviously, it does feel very rock and roll, right? Taking collections and showing them off is great. I'm a collector, so I get it. I have all my tickets from the various shows I've been to. But I wonder if there isn't something that we want to make a little bit more interactive about this. I almost want to be able to walk up and touch a ticket and hear a live clip from that ticket, or understand, in some way I can collect tickets, or something I can do that's interactive with around the collection. I also really wanted to go play with audio equipment, right? And so I'm wondering if there can be a less spectator until the final rock scene, which I agree needs to blow your socks off because you're building to that. But can I get into the role of some of these things? Is there a little space I can do my own live mix of things coming in, which I understand you have to separate the audio. But how can I become part of the process? How can I be more interactive and more involved in not just the spectator of that? Because you're not going to ever compete with showing a real rock concert. So we need to add something that is more appropriate for the smaller spaces, the more intimate spaces that you have. But overall, I loved it. I would go there and just want to play more while I'm there.
Yeah, Rodney just took my thing.
Because
I want to play with. I love the equipment section. That's where I would immediately gravitate to and want to play. And I used to mix front of house and stuff, so it's not like I don't understand the equipment, but I would or love to see the history of the tube amp to the pedal screamer that Hendrix used, and how that became this, and how the Leslie speaker works. And I think there's a huge opportunity in the equipment section to make it really interactive and educational about it. And I also agree about the CBGB scene. I thought this morning on the way in, I go, oh, I know, you have a separate entrance. It's an actual bar. And yes, you make that stage more interactive, or even have opportunities for special events where bands actually come in and play. And so, you know, you go through the experience, you land in this place, and there's other people that are there just having fun watching a band. And you know, it's the bar slash retail end of the show, somehow to just really enliven it and put bodies in that space. But I love the aesthetic, I love the look. I think it's an important cultural thing around the world. What you know, what rock is to the world, and how it's transformed a lot of cultural things in our lives. So, good one.
I think we work with the Rock Hall pretty often, and you know what's obvious that you can see in Rodney and John's comments as well is rock is emotional. Concerts create emotional connection between people. There's something you just can't put your finger on that's incredible. And I think there's something about that journey as you're crafting the beats of this storyline, to think about, you know, when you walk into that first ticket room, it's really high detail, right? Everything's really small, it's a little overwhelming. And you might consider having something before then that really connects you first before you have people dive into the details. You know, what is it? You know, what's the big moment that connects concerts and people? And then diving into those concerts, you know, tickets and stuff. Um, and then I think the other thing, especially in that gallery, is thinking through, you know, people have to, when you walk into a gallery, you kind of want to know what the point is first. So having some type of central link or feature for that that helps you understand the point, and then go dive into those more minuscule details, is just some best practices to think about.
Any other comments, panels, or Kyle, do you have questions?
Sorry, I'm just fast and furious taking notes here. I mean, definitely thank you for all the feedback. I really appreciate it. I mean, this is one I've kind of worked on and off for several years. It's kind of been a passion project in the back of everything else. So it was fun to bring it together, but definitely great to hear kind of all your thoughts on it. You know, Dave, you mentioned implied smell, and now I'm like, well, what if you had like stale beer and popcorn smell in the show? One quick question. You mentioned a couple of companies and references for how to kind of make that moment of the show immersive. I wasn't able to note those all down.
yeah.
Would you mind sharing them again?
Yeah, look at what Cosm, COSM, what Cosm is doing with their immersive media domes. They've got a couple that are built, and they're just continuing to expand and build more. And I haven't been to one, but from what I understand, it is something truly awesome, and in a pretty limited footprint, right? That you could, they're just doing something incredibly immersive. And then Illuminarium has a permanent install in Vegas, and they're using large, just gigantic scale media mapping and immersive media to surround the guests on the floor and the walls and all over. So start there. There's other places, but those are two places to look at.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely check them out. And yeah, I hear you all on the interactive and the collecting stuff. And actually, in the original deck that I had for this, I had this thing called So You Think You Can Tech, which was like Rock Band, but for a mixing board for effects and audio. I think I ran out of room in this, the space. But if I go back and rework this again, maybe I'll expand the footprint beyond the original. And I'd really love to bring in some more of those ideas, like the collecting stubs and everything. So definitely hear you there and completely aligned. But thank you for calling that out.
Yeah, but the other challenge, Kyle, is to not expand the footprint and do the same things, which I think would actually be a really nice way to approach it.
Okay, that's a good point. I guess I'll have to go back and rethink it a little bit.
Yeah.
See if I can fit more in a smaller space.
All right. Any other comments or questions? All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Kyle, for your submission. Appreciate that. We have one more project before we get to our awards section with Freddie. And so we are going to move on to Chrono Jam, a rhythmic odyssey. Is there anybody here from Chrono Jam?
No, Sophie is actually working at Disney. She got a job. Not able to be here today. And Amanda, again, is going to take notes for her former classmate. Thank you,
Great.
Amanda.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and turn the floor over to our panelists for a review of Chrono Jam.
I'm struggling with my mute button again. I'll jump in. I like this. I like the fact that there's a backstory to how we get plummeted into these different time zones, and I like the idea of exposing people to various musical genres that they may not be familiar with. I love the work that's done on the ride vehicle. Those details being worked out, and the aesthetic of how the ride vehicle, kind of mimics a jukebox or something like that. I think there's a lot of things that have been examined pretty deeply. I'm not sure about the economics. It looks like an expensive ride to achieve, but overall, I really like the concept of taking us to these different music genres via their time slot and time. And so I give it a thumbs up. I think it's a great concept.
Yeah, I think it's highly original. I think it's ambitious. A sort of non-IP music-based attraction without shooting mechanics. I think it's great. The story's kind of fun and irreverent and immersive. The ride vehicle is really well developed and technically thoughtful. All the stuff that John said. I actually think the amount of detail you put in is where I'm struggling. I just think it's too complicated. I think the story is so complicated that you've made it kind of really difficult to achieve. You mentioned that there could be something like 108 possible variants in the storytelling. Like, that's crazy. And like, no one's going to ever be able to write 108 variants of the script. Maybe you could do it with AI. Sure. Okay. But then how do you tell that? If you think about like the great attractions that are out there, right? Like Rise of the Resistance, the story is ridiculously simple. Like, you've been captured and the resistance is going to help you escape. That's the story, right? And all the rest of that stuff are sort of how they're telling that story, but that's it. I think that you've made it more difficult by making it so complex. And I think if you simplify the story, you end up solving tons and tons of problems. Like, you've got a building for the show that's like 200,000 square feet. Like, as John was saying, it's just like crazy gigantic and crazy expensive. So I think that the simplification of the whole thing can really aid you. Same thing with like Mickey and Minnie's Railway. You're on a runaway train because Goofy screwed something up. That's it. That's the whole story, and everything comes from that. So I think that would be an approach to take.
Yeah, trying to think through this technically, obviously very, very difficult. The more variables, the more chances to go one-on-one or go down, go break, whatever words we want to use there. So that's a little, as a company that does control systems, that's a little nerve-wracking on that and just the sheer volume there. I do like the different outcomes, old school like Horizons, where did you go to space, the ocean, or the floor or the forest, right? I think that's fun. So I think you can bring that in just with a few less options, because I do like the idea of you can write it again and go through a different thing. And I don't know that it just wants to be the end. Maybe it's just two paths, right? And that would be okay too. But I love what you've done here. Love the visuals. Like the idea that I can go through all these different genres of movie or genres of music and rediscover and reignite something in them. So well done on that. Does anybody know what Horizons is? Is that too old?
Yeah, no, I know what it is.
All right.
Never.
You have to go on the web and find that one. Although
Yeah.
the book is still there.
Alicia, you have any thoughts?
Sorry, coming into the Zoom. Yeah, I had the same comments, just specifically around simplifying it a little bit. But this could be unpacked into a whole theme park. So, there's that too. And I'm sure, as you take it in segments. So I think it's really interesting. I want people to engage in and experience something like this, but definitely simplifying and asking a little less of your guests. Because they just do not pay attention as much as we think.
Right. And then, but I wish she was here because I have one like really important question, and I couldn't find it anywhere, and it's been driving me nuts. Does anyone know what MOSH stands for? Because it doesn't say it. She uses Mosh as like the name of the thing of like she just uses it throughout the presentation, and I have no idea what it stands for. I couldn't find it.
We need that emailed out to the group.
You
Yeah.
find out at the end of the ride.
I'll,
Yeah.
I'll find it for you, Dave. I'll find it for you, Dave. I have it somewhere in a pitch.
Oh, okay, good, because I really want to know. Like, it's got to be something like really clever, but I have no idea what. Anyway,
Oh, we got a comment in the chat. What is Mosh? Oh, okay. All right. Any other comments from our panelists?
I look, everyone's project. This was a great group of projects. There was a lot of great storytelling. There's a lot of great creative solutions. It was yes, we had to score it because it's a competition or whatever, but they were all really close together. And I personally had to find, like, I had to start nitpicking some things on a lot of these projects to give it a 4 instead of a 5. And so it's an achievement. It's great work by everybody.
Yeah. Oh, Amanda has a question for the panelists from Sophie.
Oh, great.
Go ahead, Amanda.
Sophie's in a meeting, but I just asked her to ask any questions, and she said, how do you approach working with something with historical and cultural context for a broad theme park guest audience?
So carefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, I think you spend a lot of time doing research and then sorting through that research to, like Rodney was saying earlier, figure out like what the core ideas are that you want to convey to the guest and focus on those. And that goes back to simplifying, right? Like if you have 1,000 ideas, the guest only is going to get 2 of them, right? And so what are those core ideas that you're trying to convey? And then how do you deliver those?
I think it's also finding the human timeless and evergreen element, I mean, the happiest place on earth, right? Disneyland is about being happy, right? And that's something everyone can agree on. So finding, for example, with this music topic, finding people crave connection. And you take that and you can find ways that you're showing that cultural element, and it makes the guest feel connected in the end, so you really, really simplify. All of that content are, those are what we call in like brands, that's a me story, not a you story. And so when there's a lot of me stories when we're telling history and culture, but really finding what the you story is and using that as an entry point into those cultural, expressions, so to speak, it's the magic sauce. Good question from her.
All right. Any other final comments or questions? Last call before we get to the big finale. And that's finding out what Mosh actually is.
Exactly.
Freddie, you got that? Um,
I can't find it. I'm gonna go back and change Sophie's grade. I can't find
So, Amanda, can you just ask Sophie? Can you just text her and
I
find
think
it?
it started with something about, I think, like movable something. I remember like a couple of the words in it. I'll text her.
I know. I won't go to sleep tonight until I find out.
Okay, wait, we have an answer. I texted her and she says, I don't remember.
Oh, God. And I'm just gonna make something up. All right.
How could that be? She made it up.
Yeah. Oh,
Oof.
dang it.
anyways,
All right.
oh wow. Well, now we have our answer. It's a
Yeah.
non-answer.
Yeah.
All right.
And
We
that's
are
a lesson. Like when you come up with something really creative, you got to be able to tell people what it is.
so. All right. I'm delayed anymore. I am going to turn the reins over to Freddie. Freddie is going to give our awards. I do not have a drum roll, but Freddie, take it away.
You're muted, Freddie.
It doesn't look like he's muted. He's not like showing a mute, but I wonder if it's a microphone thing.
Hello. I thought I fixed that. Hi,
There
everybody.
you are.
Great job, everyone. This has been really exciting to be part of this year. I was part of not this panelist group, but the previous panelist group, and just some incredible work here. And we're just thrilled to see where you're headed, and just super encouraged. Like we've kind of said along the way, this opportunity in the student showcase, you know, there are some incredible panelists who have incredible careers that are that bring so much wisdom to the table. And you know, you've just listened to that as each one of these panelists has shared their input, but it comes from so much experience. And yet we are watching our industry grow year after year. And it's a major encouragement to us to see the students who are coming into the industry. And so this is just, you know, if we haven't met before, this is that first handshake, and we will see you at IAPA and the TA and SATE and all of that stuff. So please do introduce yourselves to us. It's a great opportunity for us to meet you, and we really value it. Well, we have some awards to give away for this year, the 2025 Themed Attraction Student Showcase. And let me share my very busy screen. Stand by. We even have sounds attached. All right. Uh-oh, wrong one. You're looking at my calendar. Oh, come on, professionals. Here we go. All right. Stand by. All right, somebody give me a thumbs up if we are looking at the full screen and not the presenter version. Excellent. The Themed Attraction Student Showcase, starring you. We are going to begin with each one of the criteria categories and note some of the highlights of that. First off, we're going to look at the originality category. Originality, best in class, is Until Then, A Journey Through Grief, with Julian Nicholas from Ringling College of Art and Design. Congratulations. We also have an honorable mention in this category for Sense Ground for Lost Teens. Honorable mention, Originality, Risako Maikawa of Waseda University, Japan. Congratulations. Next up is storytelling. Does this story convey a good? Does this presentation convey a good story? Is the question we were asking, and so we wanted to share an honorable mention for Birdie's Bookish Adventure by Lizzie Sorrell of Savannah College of Art and Design. Then under placemaking, we asked ourselves the question, is there a thorough use of physical space from the initial reveal to the smallest of details? And we're going to share an honorable mention for Encore, the Rock and Fame exhibition, brought to us by Ivy Jenkins, Daniel Maynow, Tia Kasim, and Juan Bonillo. This is from the Ringling College of Art and Design. Give them a great hand. Now, guest narrative asks the question, has the guest experience been thoughtfully described? And so we want to share an honorable mention for Until Then, A Journey Through Grief by Julia Nicholas, Ringling College of Art and Design. Next up, this is the one that I don't know, I think all of the panelists, me too, live in. It's like, are we willing to present this to a client? And the question we were asking is, how well can this presentation be carried forward from here? Is there a lot of rework, a lot of polish? And we have an honorable mention for Project Oasis, Journey to the Forbidden Temple by Cal Rustad at MIT. Next up is use of technology. Is technology being used in this? Whether it's high tech or low tech, or existing or imagined, are we seeing some focus here that's bringing the novelty of technology into the project? And we wanted to share the best in class for Project Oasis, Journey to the Forbidden Temple, again from Cal Rustad at MIT. And then an honorable mention, Inner Child, A Playground for the Soul, for use of technology, to Adriana Gordon at SUNY Fashion Institute of Technology. Great job. All right, so those are all those categories, but now we want to work into the best of show. And so we're going to do a top 5 here, countdown. Best of show, 5th place overall is Chrono Jam, A Rhythmic Odyssey, 5th place overall. Sophie Kramer at Ringling College of Art and Design. This is a project centered on the concept for the Mosh Rover Rider, taking a travel through music-driven experiences on this fun and exciting dark ride. Next up, Best in Show, 4th place overall. Get your clappers ready for Inner Child, A Playground for the Soul. Adriana Gordon at SUNY Fashion Institute of Technology. This immersive spatial design capstone aims to evoke a childlike wonder and joy through the deep, personal, experiential environment, inspired by Adriana's own passion for creating playful, emotional, and resonant spaces. Counting down further, now we're in the 3rd place overall. 3rd place overall goes to Encore, the Rock and Fame exhibition, with Ivy Jenkins, Daniel Maynow, Tia Kasim, Juan Bonillo at Ringling College of Art and Design, an immersive museum experience that invites visitors to step into the shoes of legendary rock artists, guiding them through the stages of rise, struggle, and legacy, and drug addiction. If you watched this one, really interesting and fun experience. All right, here is our runner-up, 2nd place overall. Until Then, A Journey Through Grief, Julia Nicholas, Ringling College of Art and Design. She also received Best in Class for originality for her immersive museum art installation that guides guests through the 5 stages of grief via authentic narratives from 3 individuals who experience grief. The interconnected exhibits cutting-edge technology to foster empathy and awareness. Congratulations to our 2nd place, Julia Nicholas. And finally, for Best in Show, we have, let's get those snappers or clappers or drum rolls, please. Please congratulate Tallulah, Best in Show, Amanda Caldera, Ringling College of Art and Design. This is a very unique one because she also received Best in Class for storytelling, placemaking, guest narrative, and industry ready, all of which were perfect scores for those categories. This is a fantastic, immersive, floating community concept in Indonesia where guests explore vibrant environments and uncover the mystic powers of a hidden sea spirit through interactive storytelling rooted in sunken ruins and her own original IP design. Folks, this has been a fantastic year for the Themed Attraction 2025 Student Showcase. We can't thank you enough. I wish to also thank the main team who pulled this all together. Jesse Cam, MK Haley, Jamie DeRuyter, Christian Rogers, and Peter Weishar. And of course, let's give a big hand to kind of the spark that lit this fire, Nate Naverson. Thank you so much for your good work. We are so grateful to you. And again, I think our presence, the folks who are in the industry now, we welcome your friendship and your networking. Please reach out to us on LinkedIn. Make the connections at the various industry events that we're at. We're excited to see where you're going, but not only that, we need you on our teams. And so we're excited to meet you and see where those relationships lead. Perhaps in the future, we will be working together. So congratulations to all, especially to Luli. We're thrilled to see our winner this year as by Amanda Caldera. Congratulations all.
Great job, everybody.
Great job.
Yeah.
Any last tie-ups? Do we want to announce next year? Let's say 2026, we will be there. Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just want to say, 10, 15 minutes, not a ton of time. If any of the students, anyone who submitted a project has any more questions or just wants to talk more about the project or more about the ideas or the industry or whatever, just reach out, please. Happy to talk to anyone afterwards about anything.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. You've done a great job. Can't wait to see you at IAAPA.
Yeah, last bit of housekeeping. There are several projects that were very, very strong that were just outside those awards. Dr. Jesse Kim is furiously working on getting all of the feedback notes together. We had an issue with Max not being able to talk to PCs, so the notes were supposed to be out today. However, the dog ate our homework. So those will be coming to your inbox soon. So look for those, and congratulations to everyone who worked so hard. I hope that this was worthwhile for all parties. So thank you all for joining us.